ज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतापरकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवंश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथं वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखं हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कंत राधा कंत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कंचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। It worked. More people here. And when I was chanting that, my eyes are closing, but I was realizing that everybody that we're chanting with is here in this room. You know, all the Panchatattva, the Guru Parampara, Radha, Krishna, Lalita, Vishaka, everybody that we mentioned, all the Vaishnavas, everybody's here. So it's nice. Thank you all for coming this morning. Before speaking, I would like to humbly beg for the permission and blessings from Srila Indradyumna Swami to speak today. Let's see, it's Senior Vaishnava here and great soul. Oh, and Badahari Prabhu as well. Hare Krishna. Please bless me that I may represent our Guru Parampara. We're at a very interesting place, people. We're talking about the key. We're talking about like a way of making sense of a vast body of literature in a huge ancient tradition that can be confusing because it speaks on so many different levels. It's so broad, it's so wide. It's so impressive. You know, such a body of knowledge. The vast Vedic literatures, the four Vedas, the Upanishads, the Vedanta Sutra, the massive Mahabharata, with all its stories and all its information, all its characters. And then the Puranas. I mean, it's huger still. You know, there's 18 Puranas. Some of these Puranas have like tens of thousands. Like I think some Puranas have almost like over 60 or 70,000 verses in them. And of course, but our subject, where we've come now, is the Bhagavad Purana. That the author himself, this is what we've been discussing in the past few days, right? People debate about where did they go and what do they lead and what is the message? Is God a person? Is God like many people, like many gods and goddesses? Is God just an energy? Is that the ultimate realization, that God is just an energy, or God is the energy? Maybe all there is this energy. We are that energy. We haven't realized it. And once we realize it, we are God. How does it all work? How do we make sense of it? And people debate about this because the texts do speak to people on different level, and many of the texts are cryptic in nature. You can read these verses and you can interpret them in several different ways, sometimes many different ways. Can we make sense out of this huge body of knowledge? And then we get this text, the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Purana, it's also called, one of the 18 Puranas. And Vyas, the author, tells his own story. He says that I had completed all these texts, and I was up in my hermitage, way up in the mountains here. And even though I felt like I should feel good, I should feel like, oh, I've accomplished so much, I've provided, I went into a deep state of meditation and I connected to this eternal body of knowledge. It's not my knowledge, right? But I was able to access it. And then I've been entrusted to divide it, to edit it and provide it in a systematic way for the people of the world as we enter this dark age. I should be feeling good right now. What an accomplishment. I mean, someone writes a book, and then you get it published and you feel like, okay, I got that done. I feel good. He had written so much, but and he's a very sensitive yogi, right? These aren't like crude people. These are people that are really understand their internal workings. They really go deep into their mind and deep into their own heart. So he's going deep in and he's saying, why? Why am I not feeling good? Why am I feeling something's wrong, something's missing, something's lacking? And then he intuits himself, maybe I haven't emphasized the final goal clearly enough. This divine love, this bhakti, it's such a sacred thing, such an intimate thing. I mean, look at this painting here. This is a vision of that divine love. Right? And if a materialistic person looks at this, they may not understand it at all. They may totally misunderstand what it's all about. Oh, look at this guy. He's got like a harem here, right? He's enjoying like crazy. And no. This is very sacred. This is real love, right? Without any selfishness, right? This is purity. This is the highest stage of awareness. This is the ultimate yoga. You need to understand, and maybe Vyasa is saying, maybe I was holding back on that a little bit. It wouldn't be understood correctly, and I'm trying to come down and speak to people on their level. But maybe I didn't emphasize the highest goal. Maybe I wasn't clear enough about it. And as he's sitting up there in the mountains and he's feeling this being, his guru, Narada, a person from Vyasa, he was born about 5,000 years ago. Narada, he was born at the beginning of the universe practically. He's the direct son of Lord Brahma. He's been seeing and participating in the histories of the universe from its beginning. And he comes and he appears right before Vyasa. And he's with a heart full of compassion, ready to help him. You need my help, I'm here. And he confirms Vyasa's intuition. You haven't emphasized bhakti clearly. That even knowledge of Brahman, and we're going to get into this today, even knowledge of the divine oneness merging into that, even this clear understanding that I am not this body or this mind, that I'm a spirit beyond all material identities, beyond the shiftings of this material universe, that knowledge is good. But if it has no connection to the person, the beautiful person that's behind it all, then there's no beauty in that. He says it. He says, Nashobhatam, Nashobhate. There's no beauty in it. He says, you need to go back. You need to go back into meditation. You need to access that body of knowledge, that eternal body of knowledge there. And you know what you need to find in there? You need to find the pastimes of Krishna, right? Krishna and Vrindavan. You need to connect with that. You need to bring that down. You need to share that with everyone. And you need to emphasize that all of your yogas and all of your dharmas and all of that, they all culminate in divine love. Give people that. That's your order, right? Now he's got the order of his guru, right? When you have an order of the guru, and this is a really authentic relationship, you feel empowered, right? Now, have any of you ever felt like, I don't really know what my purpose is? I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing. When you have faith in the guru, and the guru is authentic and real, and the guru gives you an order, you're like, I know what to do. You feel, it's a wonderful feeling. You feel like I know exactly what my purpose in life is, and I got power behind me to do it. And so Vyasa connects. He connects with that knowledge. He brings it down in the most fascinating and brilliant way. He writes the Srimad Bhagavatam. He revises this text that he had already written. He revises it, and he fills it in with his richest work yet. Poetically the most rich, philosophically the most rich, theologically the most rich. This is his masterpiece, super masterpiece. To this day, scholars, like religious scholars, philosophical scholars, they look at the Srimad Bhagavatam, they say, this text is beyond, right? this text in terms of its philosophical presentation, in terms of its artistic and poetic present. It has the most beautiful poetry in it. On so many levels, this work, it exceeds Vyasadev's previous works, right? He really, really put everything into this text. And the way he opens up is the perfect way to clarify everything. And we spoke about this yesterday. He opens up with the sages. They're in the forest. They're trying to understand. They know that the dark age is coming and people are going to have short lives and short memories and disturbed minds. And they need something to get through that dark time. We should try to do something for them. They're trying to do rituals. They're doing different things. And they all have different understandings of Vyasadev's broad Vedic literature. They all have different conceptions of the divine. The divine is an energy. The divine is in the heart of every living being. The divine is a person. The divine is many gods. They all have these different ideas, all drawn from Vyasa's works, and they're confused and they don't know where to go, and they feel like they're getting nowhere. And they turn to one sage, Sutta Goswami, and they ask him, you have been blessed in such a way that you understand all of these texts better than any one of us. And so we're turning to you and we're asking, tell us the essence of it all, right? Even mastering one field within this broad literature is a lifetime's work. So we're asking you just to boil it down to its essence and tell us, what is it from these spiritual texts that leads to the highest good for all mankind? And what is it from these spiritual texts that gives complete satisfaction to the self? And he comes straight out and answers, Savai Pungsa, for all humanity, Paro Dharmo, the highest Dharma, Yato Bhaktir Hoksajay, is divine love offered unto God. Ahoitiki apratiyata, this kind of love isn't the materialistic kind of thing that we call love. It has to be entirely free of any motivation, pure love, right? Not that you want the things of this world as we're taught in the four Vedas. Not that you even want moksha, freedom from the sufferings of this world as taught in the Upanishads. This love has to be free from any of these motives. That's pure love. If you have that kind of pure love, yatma supersidity, it'll give complete satisfaction to the self. And then that you can imagine these sages, they're saying, okay, well, that's a very interesting thing to say. And we have read some stuff. We read the Bhagavad Gita. It sounded like what you're saying right now, but we've also read the Upanishads. And when we read those books, it seemed to be saying that knowledge and detachment from the things of this world, recognizing that all forms are illusory, and that the identities that we adopt in this world, I am boy, I am girl, I am this, that these are all illusory. And so when we hear about bhakti and this boys and girls, they're loving each other and they're running around the forest and they're playing, that sounds to us like the material world, right? All this duality, right? Isn't knowledge and detachment really knowing what's real and what's unreal, and then letting go of all names and forms and all? Isn't that the goal of it all? Isn't that what leads to complete satisfaction of the self? And then he answers, again, what's the verse? Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayat Yasu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayara Hoitikam. He says, no, you don't understand. That detachment from all the things of this world, knowing what is what and being detached from all the illusion, when you have love for God in your heart, and that's risen and it's powerful in you, and you feel that love, you automatically lose interest in everything of the material world. You don't have any material attachments anymore. You have spiritual attachment. It's a whole nother level. They must be like, oh, okay, this is, that everything that you get from knowledge and detachment is inside bhakti. It's like if I gave you $100 and you said, but I need 10. What about the 10? No, you don't realize the 10 is inside the 100, So when you have love of God, what about knowledge and detachment? No, knowledge and detachment is inside love of God. When you got love of God, you know what this world is and you're detached from it. None of the things of this world, the external pleasures, external distractions, none of them can attract you, because your heart's become attracted to that highest spiritual object, divine love. Okay, so then people the sages might have said, but we've read the Vedas, the four Vedas, And they talk a lot about it's when I read those books, it seems like the highest goal of life and what brings the complete satisfaction to the self is being very dutiful, being a good brahmana, a good kshatriya, a good vaishya, a good shudra, following all these duties in life very well, or the different times in life. When you're a student, when you're young, you get married life, be a good married person, be a good retired person, a good renunciate. We thought following these duties and doing all the rituals that you accumulate good karma and you reap the benefits of that and you get all the good things in this world. Isn't that the highest thing? Isn't that what gives complete satisfaction? No. He says all those duties from the Vedic texts, and he's the person, this is Vyas writing all of this for us to clarify. He's saying all of those duties, and you never should do them for materialistic endeavor. You should never do them just to satisfy the senses. They're not meant for that. As a matter of fact, if you approach the Vedas with that motive, you're completely wasting your time, he says. He says it very frankly. You're wasting your time. He says, life's endeavors is when you're a human being, you should never make just satisfying the senses of your body the goal of your life. Even the animals are doing that, right? But when you're a human being, you have special potential. What is that potential? Brahma Jignasa, Tattva Jignasa, inquiring into the absolute truth. That absolute truth, if we go back to the Vedanta Sutra, his great philosophical text, what is the absolute truth? That from which everything emanates, right? Janmad yasyataha. Okay, well, what is that absolute truth, right? What is it? What is this God that you're talking about, this absolute truth, that which nothing else depends on, that which everything comes from, right? There's nothing that's completely absolute. Everything's dependent on something. And you can always take something back to its source. What comes before it? What comes before it? What comes before it? But what is that absolute truth? That's the cause of all causes, right? That's the source of everything. Is it a person? Is it an energy? What is the absolute truth? This is a big question. Everybody with me? Do you want to know his answer?
Yes.
Okay. This answer is the key. It's like Vyasi's clarifying everything now, right? People have been reading these texts and debating about them and struggling to try to understand what is what. I'm going to give you the answer. And then he says this verse, very important verse. Vedanti tattva vidas tattvam yajganam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdite. This verse is a key to understanding everything. He's framing it in this incredible story of these sages in the forest, and they're asking these important questions. And so the translation of that is the tattva vidas, the learned transcendentalists, those that really know the transcendental energy, right? The learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth. They call this non-dual substance. Now, what does that mean? He's saying the absolute truth is one, but it manifests in several ways. So he says they call this non-dual substance Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. One God manifesting in three ways. One absolute truth manifesting in three features. And if we get this, we unlock everything. We just understand how it all works, okay? So for today, and I think probably tomorrow as well, we'll be discussing these three features of the one absolute truth. Now, I would imagine most of us, I think it's from the Bible, but I'm not sure. I really should know. The parable of the 5 men and the elephant, is that from the Bible? No, where is that from? But maybe it's in many cultures, I think. Yeah. That Panchatattva or something like that. It may be something like that there, but it seems to be across cultures. This idea that the parable of the different blind men, the blind men and the elephant, right? There's one elephant, and you have a bunch of blind men, and they're all touching the elephant and giving a report about what the elephant is like, So someone's got the tail of the elephant. Oh, what is an elephant like? Oh, well, it's this like long, skinny thing. It's got this, brush on the end of it. And someone else has the leg of the elephant. What is the elephant like? Oh, it's like a huge tree. It's a big, powerful thing. And then someone else has the trunk of the elephant. Oh, it's this like bendy thing, And someone else is touching the side. It's like a big wall, So they're all touching the same elephant, but they're all perceiving it from different angles of perception. And what Sutta Goswami, the sage that's saying this as reported by Vyas, is he's saying different people are looking at the absolute truth. They're looking at God from different angles, and they're giving different reports about what God is. But if you understand it all, if you understand the whole picture, you understand that there's one God and he's manifesting in three different ways. Does that make sense? Any questions so far? Yes. I'm sorry, you come from what kind of background? Monotheistic, yes. But in Hinduism, they say there are many gods. And so when you see all the Hindu gods, what do you think about that? What do you make of it? I'm sorry? You find it confusing? Okay, that's exactly what Vyas was trying to clear up here. Okay, so today and tomorrow, hopefully, these will help clear things up. And please feel free to ask questions at any time. Okay, and we'll try to clear that up. You're not the only one confused. Vyas that's why he had written all this literature, and he felt despondent. Why? Because people are going to read this and become confused. And so he really wanted to clarify it, and he gave the key in the Srimad Bhagavatam. One text, his masterpiece, where he really makes everything abundantly clear. He's like really explicit right from the beginning. I didn't read the first 3 verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Maybe we'll do that before we're done. But he just like saying, this is the mature part of the Vedic literature, the mature fruit, right? This is the cream of the Vedic literature. Here in this is real important. It's in the 2nd verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam where he comes down and says, there's not going to be any cheating in this book. In a sense, he's saying, I was kind of cheating you before. And what does that mean? It means like sometimes to help someone, we kind of cheat them a little. We make them a promise. And that promise is never really fulfilled. But it helps. Like, for instance, I gave this example, I think, in one of the early classes. Let's say that you have let's say here in India, like a lot of times families from India move to the West. They move, let's say they move to the United States. And they have a child, and the child is like 5 years old. And they're thinking, if we move to the United States, there'll be better economic opportunities for our child. And that's the reason that they're going. That's the reason. But if you said to the child, the child is saying, why are we moving? Why are we moving to another place in the world? All my friends are here. And then the parents say, they can't just say, because you're going to have better economic opportunities over there. The child is not ready to understand that, right? That means nothing to the child. All that they know is it's fun here, and it won't be fun over there because all my friends are here. And then the parents say, well, we'll go to Disneyland when we get there. It'll be so much fun. It's going to be nothing but fun over there. Wait till you see. We'll take you to. And so they move and they take the kid to Disneyland, but that's like one weekend, and then they're done with that, But they got the kid to move, right? They got the kid to accept. Okay, let's go. Let's move, right? But the promise that you're going to find, like you're going to be like eternally in Disneyland, is never really fulfilled, right? So in a sense, the child was cheated a little bit. And what Vyas is saying was, I cheated you a little bit in the Vedas. I told you that you would find happiness through being pious and dutiful and doing your rituals. And you got some happiness from that, but you didn't get Atma Suprasidhiti. You didn't get complete satisfaction of the soul. Right? And I cheated you a little in the Upanishads. You read those books and they read in such a way where it made you think I'm going to find complete satisfaction by letting go of the things of the material world and finding moksha, finding this peace. But even that, even though it's an incredibly powerful experience as compared to material happiness, it still didn't give Atma Suprasidhiti, complete satisfaction of the self. But he said, in this book, in this Srimad Bhagavatam, there's going to be no cheating, right? I'm going to give you everything. And he says, and then he opens up with the sages saying, tell us what gives complete satisfaction to the self. And he says, Yato bhakti or it's bhakti. Okay, so these texts can be hard to understand, but Bhagavatam, he's just so explicit. I want everyone to understand everything now, being very clear. And so it builds up to the sages asking this question, what is the absolute truth? And the answer is, the absolute truth manifests in 3 features: Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. Now let's speak about each one, okay? And really, each one of these could be spoken on for days and days and days, but we'll try to cover it briefly. What is, and I put a few charts here. When we say Bhagavan, we mean God the person. When we say Paramatma, we mean God is within the heart of every living being. We'll go deeper into this. And when we say Brahman, we say that there is an energy, a non-personal energy, right? It's really light, Jyoti, we say. It's divine light. And if we go deep into these texts, we say that that is the light that emanates from the body of Bhagavan, of the Supreme Person. And that energy is entirely spiritual, right? It has no attributes except that it's just light, right? But if you have an experience of that light, let's say it this way, if you have an experience of that energy, you feel a sense of relief that is so deep that you feel like I've achieved the goal of all spiritual life, like that. Right? And you may feel that for a long time until there's a sense of emptiness even there too. But let's talk first about Brahman. Okay, this is an interesting idea because a lot of what's beautiful about Eastern spirituality has a lot to do with Brahman, that there is this divine energy. And when you understand that energy and connect with that energy, you feel something deeply spiritual. Nowadays, a lot of people say, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. But sometimes it's very vague exactly what they mean by spiritual. I'm into like crystals, or I read about the chakras or different things. What do you mean spiritual? But when we understand Brahman and Brahman realization, it really clues us into a lot of what spirituality is all about. And so that energy, that Brahman, when you realize that Brahman, you realize I am made of this same spiritual energy. Aham Brahmasmi. I'm not this body. This body is made out of matter, and I am made out of spirit. That means this body is temporary, and I am eternal. It means this body is, like, in one sense, dead, and I am conscious, and it's my consciousness that's spread throughout this body. And when this body finally falls apart, I continue as a conscious spark of that spiritual energy of Brahman. So Aham Brahmasmi, this is a very, very famous, very common Vedic aphorism. I am spirit, I am Brahman, I am that energy, I'm made of that, right? And I have listed here Brahman realization, a bit of what it looks like. And if it helps you to take a photo of that or anything, please feel free. And I'll just read from it. I am, let me pull it up on my computer so I'm not bending around the whole time. Okay, I'll read a little bit of what I've written about this too. At the level of Brahman realization, one perceives the impermanence of material existence, right? We say that the nature of the self is Sat, Chit, Ananda. And in each one of these, in Brahman, you realize the eternality, Sat. In Paramama, you realize the knowledge. And in Bhagavan, you realize the Ananda, the bliss. So Brahman realization begins with perceiving the impermanence of material existence. And it seeks the eternal, unchanging reality that underlies all creation, right? Everything stems from this energy. This is the Sat aspect of the Absolute Truth, the realization of pure existence and oneness with the spiritual essence. And the characteristics of Brahman realization are understanding the temporary nature of material identities and attachments, experiencing freedom from the dualities such as joy and sorrow, gain and loss, seeing the oneness of all beings beyond our bodily distinctions, and awakening to the eternal nature of the self, the Atma, and its oneness with the spiritual reality, right? In one sense, I'm one with God, in the sense that I'm made of God's energy. Just as the sunlight is one with the sun. It's got heat, it's got light, it's got the exact same qualities as the sun. It's the energy of the sun. So we are like that with God. And you realize that in Brahman realization. I am made of God's energy. If you don't have full knowledge, you think, I am God. If you have full knowledge, you say, I am made of God's energy. I have the qualities of God. I am eternal. I'm full of knowledge. I'm full of bliss. And so what I have here is what is the meditative insight of one who's achieved this Brahman realization, who's connected with it and felt it and understands it and knows it. I am Brahman. I am spirit. I am beyond the fleeting identities of this material world. I'm not a man or woman of this world. I'm not American or Indian or European or South American, any of these temporary identities. These are just bodies that I'm passing through momentarily, a blip in time. I'm beyond these fleeting identities. I'm beyond the desires and lamentations of this illusory realm. The mind, which is just a material machine, it becomes programmed to think, I need this to be happy. And when I get it, oh, I'm happy. And I need to avoid this. Otherwise, oh no, life is so bad, I'm suffering. When you have Brahman realization, you realize this material realm is always shifting. That's its nature. And my nature is that I'm always steady, right? And as long as I'm in touch with that and feeling that, it doesn't matter what's going on externally. We call this samatvam, even-mindedness. That's spiritual, right? I've realized that I am made of spirit and I'm beyond all of this shifting. Brahman realization. Going on. I am eternal, luminous, indivisible, right? You can't break me down. I'm not made out, like my body is made out of different parts and different cells. You can break it apart. That's not me. I'm indivisible. I'm a spark of spirit. Bhagavad Gita is going to say you can't cut it in half. You can't burn it. You can't take it apart in any way, right? That's me. I'm luminous. I glow naturally, right? I'm alive. I'm eternal. And I'm part of the infinite spiritual energy that pervades all existence, right? I am part of the one, right? And it's a profound experience. It's a profound realization. It's spiritual understanding. So Brahman realization is often the goal of those seeking moksha, right? Liberation, a state of being free from the material bondage and established in one's spiritual essence. That's called Brahman. Have you read books that speak about this kind of understanding? Raise your hand if you've read, commonly, right? We read books on yoga, read books on Vedanta. They speak a lot about this Brahman realization. And many yogis feel like that's the goal. Okay, and this goes back to some of the things we were talking about before. And let me really try to clarify this, because this is the point where Vyas was saying everybody's becoming confused. Because I've spoken a lot about Brahman realization, and I've really spoke about it as being a goal in life. But many people have identified it as the ultimate goal, and he wanted to be clear, it's not the ultimate goal. And he's going to make many, many, many statements in the Srimad Bhagavatam to clarify that. He's going to do it again and again and again. You know how, like in classical music, they have a theme, like there'll be a theme in the music, and then they revisit that theme again and again and again, but in different ways, or they call it variations on a theme. Is that correct? To speak to our musical experts, right? Variations on a theme. The theme in Srimad Bhagavatam is that beyond Brahman realization and even beyond Paramatma realization is Bhagavan realization, is divine love. That's the theme. And then it tells story after story after story, revisiting that theme and illustrating it in many, many ways. That's what happens in this text. He's so clear about it. This is the point that I wanted to make. It's easy. It can be easy to mistake Brahman realization as the ultimate goal of spirituality and the final end, because it appears to be the opposite of materialistic existence, right? If I look at the material world and I look at how I suffer in this world, I see that my suffering, one of the causes of the suffering is that all these forms that I become attached to disappear. They change and they disappear. There's the form of my body. There's the form of my home. There's the form of my wealth. There's the form of other social structures like my nation or my community, right? There's the forms of the bodies of my loved ones. All of these forms are subject to the power of time, and they all change, and then they all fall apart. And then because I'm attached to them, I suffer. I feel pain. So many yogis will say, okay, I get it. We suffer in this world because of form. These texts are telling us that the forms are illusory. So the spiritual realm, where there's no suffering, must have no form. There must be no form there, right? And I also see that my suffering is caused by relationships. I have my individual awareness, my individual consciousness. You have your individual consciousness. But we have different ideas and different desires, and we're coming into conflict with each other. So this sense of individuality seems to be the cause of so much conflict and stress and pain. So if the spiritual realm is free of pain, then it must also be free of individuality. It must all be one, right? There's no form, there's no individuality. And so there's a logic to this idea that this Brahman realization and this Brahman energy must be the highest goal. It must be the top, because it's the exact opposite of the material realm. Does that make sense? Raise your hands if that makes sense. Okay, now here's a big key. And this, I'm going to go back to the same question I've asked several times throughout this course. What is the difference, or what is the opposite of being $1 million in debt, right? $1 million in debt is like big anxiety, right? What is the opposite of being $1 million in debt? Now, some people might say it's being free of $1 million debt, right? Oh, what a relief. The debt is gone. I feel such peace of mind now. This is so satisfying, right? You can feel happiness and peace and relief. But another person, no. That's not the opposite of being $1 million in debt. What's the opposite of being $1 million in debt? Owning $1 million, right? Having $1 million. That's the opposite, right? So your state of peace, being free of debt, that was a neutral state. It wasn't the opposite of being $1 million in debt and all that anxiety, right? It was a neutral state. But there's something beyond that, and that's having $1 million. So what Vyas wanted to clarify in the Srimad Bhagavatam is, although I spoke a lot about Brahman and a lot about Brahman realization, and that's a very powerful step forward in one's spiritual life, but that's not the goal. That's not the end. In fact, it's kind of a neutral state. It's a state of freedom from material suffering. But what about what about spiritual joy? What about spiritual ecstasy? What about spiritual love? Where there's spiritual form and spiritual relationship, right? These things of this world is a reflection of the spiritual realm. Everything that's in the spiritual realm, that's the original substance, and it's reflected in the material realm, right? So the opposite of it isn't no form, no individuality. It's spiritual form, spiritual reality. And that's found in Bhagavan, right? In the divine person. That makes sense? Raise your hand if it makes sense. If it doesn't, if you don't raise your hand, that's okay. You don't have to. Questions about that? Okay, we're good? Yes? Okay. So then now let's talk a little bit about Paramatma. And this is such a big subject. And this spiritual life gets very fascinating and very interesting and very beautiful on the level of Paramatma realization. I want to go back to this chart over here. If you have Brahman realization, you've experienced a very powerful spiritual experience. A lot of people are talking about being spiritual, but if you've got this Brahman realization, you've really got something. But if you have Paramatma realization, Brahman realization is inside it. You've got everything that the Brahman realized person has, and you understand more. Okay, so I'll read a little bit about what I wrote regarding Paramatma. This means recognizing the divine presence that's everywhere. As one advances, realization deepens from the impersonal to the personal. In Paramatma realization, one perceives the supreme as the all-pervading localized aspect of the divine, present in the hearts of all beings and within every atom of creation. This corresponds to the Chit aspect of the absolute truth, embodying transcendental knowledge and intelligence. I have come in contact with the divine intelligence that's behind everything, that's behind Brahman, that's behind the material energy, that's moving this entire universe, right? And shifting, in all of its shifts and all of its changes. There's an intelligence behind it. There's one being, and that being pervades it all. That just like in any living body, there's a soul. If there's no soul, the body's dead. But if the body's alive, and if it's showing the symptoms of life, it means there's an Atma, a spark of spirit inside it. And my Atma is pervading this field, this body, and it's spreading consciousness throughout this body. The consciousness comes from the Atma. It spreads its consciousness throughout the body. So if you were to touch my toe, I would feel it because my consciousness is spread down to my toe. If you touch my head, I will feel it because my consciousness is spread all the way up to the top of my head. You don't know what's going on in my body because your consciousness hasn't penetrated into it. So like if I'm hungry right now, you don't know, I know, right? If I feel sleepy right now, maybe you can kind of tell from, but you don't know. I know whether I'm sleepy right now. You don't know. And similarly, I don't know whether you're hungry or you're sleepy because my awareness is limited to the field of this body. Okay, that makes sense? So what the yogis are saying, what Vyasa is saying in all his texts, and this is spoken about throughout the Upanishads, throughout the Mahabharata, throughout Bhagavad Gita is loaded with information about Paramatma. And throughout Bhagavatam and the Puranas, so much is spoken about Paramatma. Very important for yogi to understand. It's saying that just as your consciousness spread through your body, my consciousness is spread through my body, the universe is a body. The universe is a living body. And it has an Atma, it has a soul. And that soul is Vishnu, right? And that soul is going to manifest in three different ways. The word Vishnu means one that pervades. And so the idea is there's a material realm that we're playing in. We're trying to play in, and hopefully we're learning in. And to maintain that material realm, then Krishna, who is Bhagavan, expands as Paramatma and enters into that realm on three different levels. We're getting to really far out stuff now. Are you ready for like psychedelic kind of stuff? Yes? So it says that there's an unlimited spiritual sky. And within that, there's kind of like a bubble or like a cloud, but let's call it a bubble, right? And that's the material realm. That's the virtual reality, right? The reality is the spiritual realm, and this is reflection of the spiritual realm, but made of material energy. And the laws of time and the laws of karma are in effect in this realm. And Vishnu lies down in that bubble. And just by his meditation, he creates unlimited universes. Nowadays, people are talking about multiverses, right? Even like the scientific community is beginning to speak about multiverses, that maybe this universe is really just one universe amongst many, many, many universes. So if you go to the yogis up in the mountains 10,000 years ago, they're going to tell you about multiverses. They all knew about this. And they say, so from Vishnu's body, from just his breath, unlimited universes emanate from the pores of his skin, right? And in one breath, they go out, and on the inhale, they come back in. And so there's these cycles of creation and destruction on this cosmic scale that is beyond what we can even conceive of in terms of time and in terms of space. It's just so vast. Like that. And then, so that's one form of Vishnu called Mahavishnu, the great Vishnu, the big Vishnu. And then in each one of those universes, he enters again. And it fills up half with water, and he lies down on the water. I'm telling you, this is far out stuff, okay? From his navel grows a lotus. He can create in any way he wants, right? In any beautiful, creative way. This is how he chose to create. From his navel grows a lotus flower. And upon that flower is born Brahma, a living being like you or me in one sense, right? But incredibly empowered, right? Vishnu enters into the heart. He infuses knowledge into the heart of Brahma and gives him all the knowledge that he needs to create. Right? And so then he creates all the species, all the planets, all the living beings. And then Vishnu does his third. That one's called Garbhadakshay Vishnu. Garbha refers to the navel. So he's born from the navel of Vishnu, of Brahma. And then into each one of those bodies that's created by Brahma, he enters again into the heart of every living being. This is the third manifestation of Vishnu. And that manifestation not only goes into the heart of every living being, but it goes into every atom of creation. His awareness is spread throughout all creation, my body, your body, even every atom in the universe. His awareness is there. So just like sometimes there's like these CEOs of huge corporations, and there's just one person running the entire corporation, but they have their awareness spread throughout the entire corporation in the form of different department heads. Well, Vishnu he can become that department head himself, and he can expand himself into every body and into every atom, so that his awareness is Vishnu. It's all pervading. It's pervading everything. There's not one speck within the entire universe or the multi-universes where his awareness is not present, right? He's the super soul. So my awareness is in my body, your awareness is in your body. His awareness is in everybody, like that. And the yogis would give this example of just like if the sun is in the sky, and if you have many pots of water, that one sun appears reflected in all the different pots. So similarly, you have one Vishnu who's the soul of the universe, and he's manifesting within the heart of every living being. One Vishnu, but manifest in unlimited places, unlimited localities. That's Paramatma. Make sense? Okay. Yes.
I have actually a question about the soul and what you say about Vishnu manifesting after one thing. I really share the same thinking. It's a helpful biology.
Okay.
We are one with our body system, cells, bacteria, and microbiome. They also choose to be what we are. But it doesn't mean that every molecule or atom also has a soul.
I'm sorry, that every molecule or atom is also a soul. That soul would be the Paramatma. That soul would be. Now, there are single-celled living entities that have a soul.
That's non-living things with the soul.
I'm sorry?
Non-living things with the soul.
Yes.
Kind of like biology is also something many scientists are kind of bringing that home. What is actually the threshold of the soul and non-soul? Because if you go really down to very, very basic things, there's not really a clear line sometimes.
Yeah, and it's, you've expressed it so well. That line won't be clear through our eyes or through our microscopes, or the yogis, they just say, we'll take the testimony of the sages or the testimony of the Veda, which is like there is a manual for the universe that explains everything. There's a universal body of knowledge that the sages could tap into, and it explains these things. So they'll say that there are three different ways to understand. One is through empirical knowledge, what we can see with our senses, perceive with our senses, and then one is like what we can speculate with our mind, and then the third is what we can hear from testimony of sources that have higher knowledge than ourselves. And they say there's certain realms where we depend on the testimony, and so there'd be certain realms in science where it's just beyond what we can even imagine. And so they accept that testimony. But it's interesting, the idea that is a rock conscious? We would say on one hand, no, and on one hand, yes. Because on one hand, like this body, this human body, we would call it conscious because I'm in here. And in a sense, I own it. Like, in a sense, this is my body. It will be revealed through time that ultimately it's not. But at least temporarily, it's kind of like, this is my body. Why? Because my consciousness is spread throughout it. And that's your body because your consciousness is spread throughout it. And we even develop, just kind of like in conventional ways. Therefore, I need to respect your body. You need to respect my body because you feel inside that body. And so we need to be sensitive to it. Whereas the rock has no soul inside it. It has no individual being that's saying, this is my body. At the same time, we accept that the Paramatma is in every atom of that rock. So in that sense, consciousness is everywhere. In the Vedic aphorism, Sarva Kalvidam Brahma, everything is Brahman. It plays out that in one sense, you could say everything is spiritual energy because there's consciousness everywhere. So it becomes a bit of, as you're saying, kind of a fine line. It's a nuanced truth. But their teachings on that nuanced truth penetrate layer, so that we can get a very clear understanding. Okay. Yes? This Paramatma. Yeah. It has God's awareness inside it. God is soul too, but what I'm saying, it doesn't have an individual separate soul necessarily. Will the cell, again, there are certain single-celled beings, and they are a soul inside a single cell. And so that soul would reincarnate out of that cell and into the next level of existence, into another body. So that's there. Okay, but if I chip a piece off of a rock, it's not like there was a soul inside the rock that goes on and takes another life, necessarily, although there may be some rare exceptions. Okay, we're out of time. I want to honor the time, but Ankit, maybe you could keep that question either for tonight or for tomorrow. We'll come back tomorrow. We'll speak about Paramatma. And, no class tomorrow. We'll come back on Tuesday, and we'll go deeper into Paramatma, and ultimately we'll go into Bhagavan. Thank you all so much. You've been such a wonderful, attentive, thoughtful group of seekers and transcendentalists here. It's a joy to speak about these things and discuss these beautiful spiritual concepts with you in this holy place. I hope to see you in a couple of days. And also tonight, I'll be doing the Q&A booth here from 7 until 8:30. And here today, in a few minutes, there'll be wonderful kirtan going most of the day in different workshops and all that. So please stick around if you can. Thank you all so much. Oh, and recordings. If you would like the earlier recordings of these classes, as well as future ones, as well as recordings of the Q&As, simply speak to Gabrielle, and she'll be happy to connect you with that. Thank you all so much. Hari Om Tat Sat.